Okay, we have a balanced set this morning. I will dare call it a balanced diet because the dietitian is also here, and with him is also a teacher, and they're going to inform us of the various projects they're undertaking with Teach for Kenya. They're also doing their fellowships, and they'll be informing us how that's going, how you can join Teach for Kenya from the diverse background that you might be from. But here with me is Bedel Kasi Ogweno. He is a Teach for Kenya fellow, and also accompanying him right on the set is Lydia Owire, also a Teach for Kenya fellow and a teacher at Imara Primary. Welcome to the show, guys. I'm glad to have you this morning.
Thank you. The pleasure is all ours.
Baridi ni mingi sana huko nje. I don't know if that has affected your journey to the station today.
Yeah, in effect, because then in Nairobi also when it rains, fare pia inacheza up and down. So in one way or the other,
Yeah, it's a bit also slippery out there. So if you're trying to get to work, please do take care and dress up warmly, unlike what I'm seeing Bedel dressed up as. Sijui kama baridi haikusumbui.
No, I was told to remove my heavy jacket. I came in as a bouncer.
All right. But now we want to speak to you as a dietitian.
Exactly.
All right. Welcome to the show. Maybe let me start with the lady, Lydia. An introduction to you, to our viewers this morning. You're a teacher by profession. I don't know if you're a teacher by training as well. You can tell us about that, and also your time generally at Imara before we get into the main conversation.
Okay, so my name is Lydia Owire, a professionally trained teacher, currently working at Teach for Kenya, where I'm serving in a community in Kayole in a school known as Imara Primary School. So I believe my 1 year journey has been a very interesting journey. And so I believe as a trained teacher, my passion has grown deeper. And this is evident by the kind of feeling and bonding I have with my learners. And it also shows in the kind of dedication I have for my work. I also believe working in such a community, in a social economic background, you have to know yourself well in order to understand your learners. And so that has helped me so much, so that if a learner is behaving in a certain manner, you are able to tell why they're behaving so,
right, rather
than judging them.
That's great.
Yeah.
And we're going to also have a look generally at what Teach for Kenya does and how you guys got to join and become fellows under it. But yes, dietitian.
Yeah.
Are you also a teacher as well?
Yeah, so good morning everyone. My name is Bedel Kasi Ogweno. I am a Teach for Kenya fellow, so that automatically makes me a teacher. I teach at Destiny Junior in Madare, Bondeni. So, but I'm also a trained dietitian, a professionally trained and qualified dietitian. Yeah, so I'm juggling with both.
Right. Yes, we'll get to see how you do handle both of them. And the conversation we're having with you is urban gardening, exactly, and how people can try and integrate that with the various challenges that are there in the urban setup. But coming back to you, Lydia, integration of environmental education, conservation and waste management. That is your project with Teach for Kenya at Imara Primary. Why this specific one?
Okay, the main aim of starting the project was to generally to help learners to become environmentally conscious, to enable them to participate in the environmental activities in order for them to acquire the knowledge, the skills and the attitude towards environmental problems. We also create awareness. When I say we are two fellows posted in Mara Primary School, so we are both working on the project. So we also create awareness and train them on the environment and how they can solve some of these problems. So how do we create awareness? We usually have environmental clubs where we usually hold them once a week, and maybe once a month. We also usually have debates on environmental issues. We usually also through promotional activities like sports and athletes. That is one way in which can also create awareness. We also train our learners on the importance of prudent and rational utilization of resources that are available within the school compound, i.e. the electricity and even water. Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
The importance of utilization of the resources that are there within the school community. We just read a story here of high school students who've burnt down dormitories over in Kakamega, and some of them have been arrested. I think that portrays a picture of people who are not utilizing the resources within their school community. And I believe this is also one of those ways to try and create awareness that these students should take care of the environment. How did you get to join Teach for Kenya?
Okay, I'm an alumni of KU by the way.
Right.
So I had a friend from KU. I happened to see the post on his Instagram. Then I applied through their website where I was called for an interview. Then later on I was called and told that I've joined. Yes.
Right.
So I got a chance with them. Yeah.
Right, and now you are having a 2-year fellowship.
Yes.
We'll be getting to see how the under-resourced schools, of course, over some of the places like Kayole are doing, and how you get to navigate the various challenges. But let's get to hear now from the dietitian. How do you now shift from being a dietitian to also having a look at issues of urban gardening?
Exactly. So I think what is informing my choices is my current reality in the slum area.
Right.
So I am a teacher. So that means I must really check on my learners in the morning when they arrive. And I'm so sorry to report, some of the feedback I get are not heartwarming at all. Yeah, so based on that reality of food security, to be particular, whereby a learner will tell you that they did not have supper or maybe breakfast. So that is really has made me to think of what can I really do to help this child so that the narrative changes.
Okay.
So it is just my small thing I'm doing towards maybe ensuring that the slum people in the slum setup also have a shot at food security,
Right.
like most of the uptown people in this town are enjoying.
Right.
Yeah. So that is why I'm really trying to do urban gardening, because it is now just you having your small kitchen garden, yeah, behind your house, on your roof of the balcony,
Right.
or maybe in the roof of the slums.
Okay.
Because like my roof ends here, the other one starts here. So you just take advantage of any place that you can afford.
Right.
Yeah.
And currently, the country, across more than 24 counties, there's an issue of food crisis, and food security has been food insecurity, as a matter of fact, has been a conversation we've had in the country for the longest time. Do you believe maybe that urban gardening can be one way in which you can tackle this challenge?
Okay, thank you very much. So I think what we really need to be aware of is our country has very many policies on food security. But then the time has now come that we should shift from policy to action. So like if we can all be proactive, in the sense you do your small thing that can ensure that we all see and get to feel the food security in this country. Just like our president is saying, he's a farmer. So maybe if all of us try to practice that little farming, maybe we can have a shot at food security.
All right.
Yeah, because already the policies are there in plenty. What is lacking is just the action.
Okay. I'm going to get back to you, but when I do, we also have to look at the challenges that face people in the urban setup. We normally call them Kikuyu landlords. When we see a building, set up in a certain way, just to maximize a very small space and create as many single rooms and bed sitters as possible. Maybe also, is it possible for someone to do that there?
Yeah.
You can think about that in the meantime. But getting back to you, Lydia, there are challenges in disseminating education within the slum areas. Going to Imara Primary, under-resourced, understaffed as well. How do you get to provide learning to this many young learners who do not have many teachers to do so?
Okay, first of all, in my 1 year experience, I had a lot of challenges. Okay, I have a very high population in my class. So you find that most of the learners are non-readers.
Right.
So as a teacher, you have to create extra time in order to help these learners. One more thing, we've created just a culture of reading, where we read storybooks maybe twice a week. We come up with storybooks where we read in order for them to improve their communication skills.
Okay.
Yeah. So I believe in such a way these are I'm trying to impact them positively.
Right.
Yeah.
And now conservation and waste management. How do you in what ways are there projects you get to involve these students so that they get a practical aspect to environmental education?
Okay. So the first thing, in the community I'm serving from, it is a low social economic background where most of the learners, they see litters being thrown everywhere, right? So we wanted to do away with the norm because we realized that the trend had been carried back to school, and you could see litters being thrown everywhere within the school compound.
Right.
So the first thing we did was to educate them, to let them be aware, know that it is our responsibility to take care of our environment.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Then later on, we started some of the activities like engaging in cleanup activities. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So there's that first step of awareness, you know, to do away with the norm, and then getting them on the ground to
Yes,
apply these practical skills. So maybe for schools that are, do not have access to teach for Kenya Fellows, and maybe haven't gotten to integrate environmental education and climate action conversation within the schools. Do you think it's important that they do this, and how can you urge them that this is going to help their learners as well, besides what they're teaching in the regular curriculum?
I think that is very important because one, these our learners are the future leaders.
Right.
So we should help them in making decisions that will shape the health of the environment in the future, in the nearby future, right? So I believe environmental conservation and waste management is a very important topic, especially having been introduced on environmental studies. Yes, there's a subject, yes, known as environmental studies in grade in lower primary. So I believe with that, we thank the government for having introduced such a subject, and I think that will also lay the foundation. Yeah.
All right.
So I urge others who may not have Teach for Kenya Fellows to also practice the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just maybe on a personal level though, you teach this environmental education, conservation and waste management. What are the subjects that you teach, the other regular class subjects?
Subjects.
Yeah.
We have art and craft. We have physical education. We have English. We have maths.
No, I was asking the ones that you teach yourself.
Okay, me myself.
Yes.
Okay, I teach English.
All right.
I teach science and technology. I also teach art and craft.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's quite a diverse list of subjects that you have a look at there, and we'll get to that in a moment. But let's have that conversation on urban planning. Yeah. I'm there in my small single room space. Neighbor wangu, his kitchen faces my toilet. You know, there's no place to do urban planning. Is it possible? Low lighting conditions, soil, hata sijui mahali nitatoa the proper soil to use. How do I address some of those challenges?
Okay, thank you very much for the concern. Yeah, so we are very cognizant of those challenges. Yeah, because then the urban space is never for the public to utilize. Right. That is what we have, and it's a discussion going on of the right to access to the city. Like, how can we use the public spaces? You know, the problem is, even in those areas we're talking about, we usually have these spaces which are left as playgrounds, but then they never exist because some few people have decided to use them in their own way. So I really think we can also do, you know, when you talk about urban agriculture, it is a very diverse discipline. But we have something called community gardens, whereby we can come together as neighbors and then maybe use part of the playing field that is outside our doorstep to raise our small garden. Okay. Also, we can have something called the hanging gardens, whereby you just hang your gardens outside for those people who can access the natural light. Right. But then, technology will also inform you that you can have very many creative ways of raising these gardens. Yeah. Because some of them, you can even just use water. Like there's this whole discipline called hydroponics. It's a wide discipline. Maybe it can be a discussion for another day. Right. Yeah, but then there are alternative ways of raising these gardens. Because the reality is, as the world population increases, we are not going to have the arable lands that we used to have in the past. Right. So either way, we must really think of very creative ways of raising these gardens. Okay. And it is good my sister here has raised the issue of environmental conservation and recycling of plastics and stuff. Because even these gardens we are currently working on, we are doing them with recycled tins. We are doing them with recycled tires so that we prevent these plastics and tires from getting burnt. All right. And so we know the effect if that happens. It's going to destroy the ozone layer, and then climate change sets in, and then that is what that is where we are at. Right. At as of today, right? Right. Yeah, we're seeing leaders all over the world having summits and meetings to discuss which way that we should go in matters of climate crisis. So maybe starting from that small scale, right there at my backyard, my bed sitter pale kando ni I hang something. While we are still on that, what are the best vegetables or herbs that you recommend for people in the urban setup to put there in the urban gardens? Okay, so there are the small things that people take for granted. For example, why must you buy an onion, yet you can raise your own onions at your bucket?
Okay.
Yeah? Or maybe your tomatoes, for example. But then kales also do well, carrots as well, you can do that. Yeah. But for those people who can access communal land, like for example in the setups of the slums, where they can get a wider space, you can also think of doing sunflower. Yeah, because it's a very good plant that first of all it helps to detoxify the soil. That is a scientific benefit that you can have with sunflower growing in your garden. And so if that happens, really, like the cases we are seeing in Madare, there's a project called Bondeni Shamba Project.
Okay.
Yeah. And they're doing very well. Actually, it's farmed near Madare River, which is very polluted. But then if you go to that place, at least they're doing something to change
to also help the river as well.
Exactly.
You know, taking a look at urban gardening, but also in the process, you're also doing environmental conservation and waste management, which is something that Lydia is having a look at. Lydia, the journey you said so far, you know, has been fruitful as a professionally trained teacher. Your passion has grown because of Teach for Kenya, and was seeing here that self-awareness and self-reflection are also important in your current profession, and also trying to disseminate this information to students. Maybe tell us, how does self-awareness and self-reflection come in?
Okay, I believe self-awareness and self-reflection comes in such a way that me as a person, if I know myself well, I know my limits, I understand well, I understand myself well, and that if I understand myself well, then I'll be able to understand the learners as well, such that if a learner has done a mistake, there's a way I'll be able to handle that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. But such that once you're aware of yourself, you're also aware of the
learner you are handling. Yeah.
All right. So for the guys who want to join Teach for Kenya, what is the process like, and how do they go about it?
Okay, so Teach for Kenya, basically they employ undergraduates, the ones who are through with their undergraduates.
Okay.
So you get to apply. They basically apply at the aim of Teach for Kenya is basically to provide quality education across the country, regardless of the to provide education for all, regardless of their socio-economic background. So how do they do this? They do this by rather employing diverse professionals across the country, where they give them leadership skills. Yes, then later on they're placed in the schools where they're supposed to serve.
So saying me as a media personality can also get to join Teach for Kenya and become a fellow.
Yes.
And then get to teach something in the schools.
Yes.
Does it have to be within environmental conservation, or I can also get to teach them about journalism?
Okay, so once you are placed in those communities you are supposed to serve, you're supposed to identify a gap. There are so many gaps within these schools.
Okay.
So for me, the first one we identified was on environment, but we have other issues that these learners are facing. So you as a fellow, you're the one to identify which one you can work on.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Come back to you, Bedel, as we wrap up this conversation. It's quite interesting to look at the ways that you guys are integrating school's lesson of this practical nature within the curriculum. When you say building resilience through urban gardening, how can urban gardening help us build resilience, and in what way?
Exactly. So I really think that the issue here is about empowerment and engagement, because it's really a very big challenge that we face in the slum setup.
Okay.
Yeah, because due to poverty, someone cannot afford a meal on their table, and you just now know where the current state of economy is. So if these people are empowered so that they can be self-reliant, that they are self-sufficient, they can raise their own food, they can be able to solve some of these small challenges that they are currently grappling with. So I really think the part of resilience, one, has to do with that, food security. Then also, if you read the title of my project, it is building resilience through urban gardening and climate education. So also, as the inhabitants of this globe, we also need to build resilience, because now climate change is real. It's at our doorstep. And remember, the late Wangari Maathai once told us that it is those small things that we do that makes the difference.
All right.
So really, if we can have this discussion on climate education at the school level, at the individual level, at the community level, all of us are going to contribute towards solving this challenge of climate change.
Okay.
Yes. So
a concerted effort all across the board.
All across. You do your part, I do mine, and then we can maybe try to revert the current situation.
All right. Those are very good words to end this conversation with. And just to wrap it up, a final call to action for guys who might want to join Teach for Kenya, and maybe if there are offices, contacts, somewhere they can get a look at, website and all of that, and maybe there's a period of application, please do inform us about that. And also maybe your last word for you, how the schools can get to integrate some of this environmental education and climate action conversations within their curriculum, and a call to action for urban gardening. Watu wako pale balcony, hiyo space badala ya kuweka mitungi sana, naweza waambia wafanye kitu na hiyo space yote. Let's start with how they can get to Teach for Kenya.
Okay, first of all, I think when you want to, if you want to join Teach for Kenya, we are on all social media platforms. We are in Facebook, we are in Twitter, on Instagram, and also on TikTok. So I guess the application will be open come May. So any person who is willing to join or who wants to join Teach for Kenya can apply.
Right. Okay. And that message to them to include environmental education.
Okay, my last message is I want to appreciate first the government for having introduced CBC, and also for having introduced environmental studies at a very early childhood, as these will lay the foundation of these young leaders that will help in making decisions that will shape the health of the environment in the coming, in the near future.
All right.
So I'll urge everyone to adapt some of these things on how we can change our environment.
All right.
Let them adapt to education, let them educate, create awareness, and spread the news so that we can have a better future.
Okay.
Yeah.
Finally, from you, gentlemen.
Okay, so my call is to all leaders who are out there who really want to make an impact in the societies they live and serve in. So Teach for Kenya gives you this opportunity. Someone might ask, why Teach for Kenya? It's giving you an alternative of using your 2 years to make a change in the society that you serve in, or the society that you know somewhere that you can really, really impact on. So I would really welcome all of them to come on board and work with us to maybe change the trajectories that we have there. So my also another concern is you out there who is having that wide space behind your house, kindly think of how that space can turn into a food security basket for you and your family. Remember, even the United Nations is urging us to create sustainable agriculture. That only starts with your action as an individual. Thank you.
All right. That is Bedel Kasi Ogweno, Teach for Kenya Fellow, and Lydia Wire, also a Teach for Kenya Fellow and a teacher at Imara Primary. Thank you guys for making time for us this morning, and I wish you all the best with your projects. I'm hoping to see this implemented across many places that I go to, and also many schools as well. Okay, Biashara Tuesday is taking a break to look at the comments, feedback that you guys have been sending through at KUTV Kenya. This SMS/WhatsApp numbers, I'll also be looking at your feedback there as well. And then we're back to more conversations are happening here, so don't touch that dial.